All right. So Paige, thank you for giving us this interview. We're wondering your professional opinion regarding animals in captivity.
Okay, well, you know, as I think you guys have already alluded to in our discussions, there are good reasons for there to be animals in captivity, and there are many ethical issues with it. You know, personally, I have avoided working with animals in captivity, and partly I think just out of intimidation for the logistics of it, and but also partly because I'm more interested in animals in their wild environments and their behavior changes in captivity, and you have to factor that in when you're doing research on animal behavior. But there are lots of really good reasons to have animals in captivity, and sometimes it's the only option when you have extremely rare and endangered species. That captive breeding programs are sometimes the only way that we'll actually retain those species. But yeah, I think ethical issues for me have to do with how those animals are cared for, and are they given enriched environments sufficient that they can live a comfortable life. I think other ethical issues have to do with what is the, how much effort and money and do you need to put into something versus all the other things you could be putting money and effort into when you're talking about captive animals, and research on even not just rare species but common species that we do research in the labs with, or so are there alternatives? Are there really alternatives to using animals in captivity, and have those options been fully explored? And we do have a mechanism for that through the animal care and use committees that are on campuses. So if you have a research and government-sponsored research activities, you have to go through a lot of procedures to make sure that the work is carefully vetted, that you've considered alternatives and things like that. But I think as a field, we're still struggling with under what circumstances is it really necessary and appropriate to use animals in captivity versus focusing in the wild. I think one other ethical issue that may not have come up as much is our ethics about what we do in the wild, and how much manipulation and handling of animals in the wild is ethically appropriate. We tend to focus a lot on captivity, but we also do a lot of things to animals in the wild. We toe clip, and we put ear tags, and we put bands, and we put pit tags, and we do all sorts of radio telemetry. And there's lots of evidence that doing those things also alters animal behavior, and might be altering the information we get from it, and has implications for the animal's longevity and their ability to survive and things like that. So yeah, I had a really bad experience when I was in graduate school where I wanted to put radio tags on birds, but I wanted them to last for as long, the battery to last as long as possible. And at the time, the technology was not such that the batteries could be very small in order for the power of the transmission to be strong enough that you could detect it from a reasonable distance. So we tried putting these backpacks on birds, and we only put it on, thank goodness, on a couple of birds, because they really couldn't fly well enough with the backpacks, and we were not adept enough at it. And people get better at it and things like that, but I basically scrapped that whole part of my dissertation work because I just didn't want to be worried that I was having such a negative impact on the birds I was studying. So that's been my personal path.